Okay. First subject is Shiva Shakti. It's the extra subject, for a large part explained at the workshop. Modern yoga and traditional yoga are very different. In fact, they are quite the opposite. In modern yoga, the emphasis is on the physical body. When I came to Korea in 1997, yoga was non-existent. But then 2 years later, it started booming. And every street corner, you could see a sign saying diet yoga. Marketing-wise, very smart, because it's the number one concern of people, and it's the strongest magnet to draw in customers. So marketing-wise, very smart. But it shows that since the popularization of yoga, all the focus is on the physical body, on beauty, dieting, beauty, perfect pose, and what have you. That's in total contradiction with yoga. First of all, if you take a modern yoga course, like this one, a professional one, a large part of the curriculum is physical anatomy. But if you look at any serious yoga book, you notice that they don't have physical anatomy at all. Not a chapter, not even a paragraph on physical anatomy. The reason for that is the same as traditional medicine, Korean traditional medicine, Chinese traditional medicine, which is based on energy. So when you go to a traditional doctor complaining about some problem that you have, the doctor will not treat the symptom of your disease, of your complaint. He will try to get to the cause of the disease. And the cause is always in your energy household. If the energy is blocked for some reason, in the long term it leads to a disease. And the longer that disease is ignored, the more severe the symptoms become. With the final step, of course, being death. If you keep ignoring the symptoms, getting more and more severe, the final step simply is death. The idea is that if your energy household is disturbed and you correct that, the symptoms, the disease, will heal naturally. And yoga is exactly like that. It's based on the same principle as traditional medicine. When you are sick, instead of treating the symptoms, you need to restore the energy household. So we will not, in modern yoga courses, the biggest part of the curriculum is physical anatomy, and you have to memorize all the muscles and the joints and the effect of each exercise on your physical body. Nonsense. That is really nonsense in the eyes of a real yogi, of a traditional yogi. It's all about energy. Restore the energy circulation, the energy household, and you will naturally heal. And not only that, you'll be less prone to disease in the future. When you practice yoga regularly, first you heal the existing diseases you are carrying with you already. That is a gradual process, of course. It's not a magic pill. You have to practice regularly. You will heal, but on top of that, you will also become stronger and thus more resistant to future disease, because you keep your energy household in good condition. So that is why we have this first extra subject, is about Shiva and Shakti. And Shiva and Shakti is, in Chinese it's called Yin and Yang, and most people have never heard of Shiva and Shakti, but most people have heard about Yin and Yang. That's much more common. So according to traditional medicine and yoga, yoga, by the way, has a medical branch, which is called Ayurveda. According to traditional medicine and yoga, everything is energy. And that is the starting point of your yoga journey, your yoga study. Everything is energy. So we need to understand what energy is. Energy exists out of two polarities, two opposing polarities. Even energy from the socket that powers your mobile phone or your washing machine, two polarities. That is why you have two forks that go into the socket. It's plus and minus, and together they create the power. One alone has no effect. A human being, or any living being, exists out of those two energies. You are, in fact, from the point of view of yoga, each of us are a ball of energy. That energy exists out of two polarities, Shiva and Shakti. Shiva is a warlord. Shiva is a male god, and yet the energy it represents is feminine. Shakti is a goddess of dance, female, and yet Shakti energy represents masculine energy. The reason for this is, at first sight, is difficult to understand, but it gives a three-dimensional idea or insight in what harmony really is. Harmony is sattva. It is the balance between Shiva and Shakti. Everything in yoga, everything, from the philosophy to the physical exercises, the energy control exercises, the meditation, all is designed to create harmony, to stop the disharmony, the fluctuation between Shiva and Shakti. Why is that important? Because the real magic in life occurs in that condition of sattva. That is why harmony or peace is so important. Now, as a beginner in yoga, that may be difficult to see at first, but peace is a condition in the big world, is a condition where there is no war. Look what happens in a country where there is no peace. Destruction. There is no flourishing economy. People are suffering. A human being that is disharmonious is like a country at war. You're just living your day-by-day life, getting by, hanging in there. But there's no room for growth, for evolution, for development. Very interestingly, when sattva is installed, we become more and more harmonious of proper, correct yoga practice. You start to develop, you start to grow. And in the beginning that's difficult to see. But if next year, today, next year, you look back 1 year, you will see very clearly how things have evolved, how things have transformed. It's like when you have a child. If it's your own child that you see every day, you don't see it growing because you see it every day. In the same way, you start practicing yoga, you start growing, you don't see the growth. But if your aunt visits you with their child, your nephew, your niece, which you haven't seen for a year, you say, wow, you grew so much. because you haven't seen that the comparison is so big that it's very obvious. But seeing a child every day, day by day, you just don't see it growing. It's so gradual. It's the same with yoga practice. But you meet people, after you started practicing yoga, and you meet people next year that you haven't met, they will look at you and say, oh, something about you changed. I can feel difference. There is, I don't know exactly what, but you have changed. Sattva, a country that is in peace, develops enormously. We are in a country that is a perfect example of that. 70 years ago, this country was one of the poorest in the world. After the Korean War, totally devastated, including its economy. And look what it is now. It's one of the wealthiest countries in the world. Only possible because of peace, sattva. That development, dramatic development, takes place in a human being when yoga is practiced correctly. But it is a long-term process, and you must control your impatience, because like I said just before, you don't see the change. And that leads to something that we call one of the diseases of the disciple. Sometimes you find it difficult to be motivated, to find motivation, to get your mat out and keep practicing on a regular basis at home, not in class but at home. One of the diseases of the disciple is that you start losing belief in that it actually really works. So for that you have to remind yourself time and time again. And compare. Compare today with the day that you started practicing yoga, and you will see that there is difference, and that realization will then re-motivate you. Now the reason that Shiva is feminine and Shakti is masculine, at the workshop there was an Indian lady, and I deliberately asked, anybody know about this, Shiva and Shakti? Which one is the masculine and which one is the feminine? Some Indian people do know that Shiva is indeed the feminine polarity of energy. But she said Shiva is the masculine, which is the obvious thing to say because it is a male god. But this is very important that you make a note of this, that you remember this, because this is what will distinguish you as a real yogi from the many fake yogis that are around in this world. I have had books, bought books, received books as a gift from people, and I start reading, and the author writes in that book, there is Shiva and Shakti. Shiva is the masculine and Shakti is the feminine. I throw away that book because I know that author is simply repeating something that they read somewhere, or they are just not properly initiated into yoga. But let me get the Hatha Yoga Pradipika out, because the Hatha Yoga Pradipika confirms that I'm not lying. Because, of course, because it is so obvious, you might think, where do you get your information from? Aren't you the one who is wrong? But in chapter 3 and chapter 4, there are several sutras that refer to Shakti as Kundalini energy. Kundalini is a supercharged masculine energy that is responsible for the process where you let energy rise from the bottom to the top, from the lower chakras to the higher chakras, which is responsible for the awakening of consciousness, which is responsible for the opening of the heart, which is responsible for the development of empathy, unconditional love, compassion, and passion. Kundalini Shakti, they call it in the text. Kundalini Shakti, which confirms what the properly initiated yogi knows, and you can count yourself among them, because this is the place where you will be properly initiated. So the end of chapter 3 and towards the end of chapter 4. You know what, I will look it up at home and put some labels so that I can directly refer to it to you next week, because now I have to look it up and it's just absorbing too much time. But we will come back to this. It's in any way it is a constant. This whole course is basically about this. And the yin-yang model is in fact reflecting this secret with each half containing the quality of the other half. The dark side has a light eye, and the light side has a dark eye. The feminine contains the masculine, and the masculine contains the feminine. Same as here. So you see there is a cross balance here. It's not just balance between Shiva Shakti, it is a cross balance. Three-dimensional. In the same way, as a man, I have feminine qualities. As a woman, you have masculine qualities. And the more balanced you are, the more you express that also. For me, as a man, I've always been relatively balanced before yoga already. And although I am not gay, throughout my life, whenever socializing and meeting people, whenever I would meet gay men, they would feel attracted to me and try to get a date with me. Because they feel my relative feminine characteristics, they draw the conclusion that I'm probably gay. Because most non-gay men, they are afraid of their feminine qualities. They try to oppress them, deny them. I've never had such a problem. So if it is women in general are more balanced in that sense because they don't have such an obstacle in acknowledging that they have masculine qualities. Men often do. Not all of them, of course, but they often do. Which is not healthy, of course. We are all just what we are. Both halves are present, and if you oppress one or the other, it can lead to an obstacle in your energy circulation, which we know now leads eventually to sickness, to disease, in the long term. These energies, the condition when you have too much Shiva energy, we call tamas. The condition when you have too much Shakti energy, we call rajas. Sattva is the condition where they are relatively balanced. In short, a human being naturally has a tendency to be in a tamas condition. Because, according to a natural law, a universal law, energy condenses. Energy, when condensing, becomes gas. When gas continues to condense further, it becomes liquid. And when it condenses further, it becomes physical matter, gross matter, solid matter, which is the body. The body is the physical body, the bones and the muscle, is the end product of the spirit condensing ending up into physical matter, into physical body. So the ancient yogis had a very clear idea of how the human being is not just a physical body, but a whole lot more. They also noticed through centuries of observation, contemplation, that this process in the universe of condensation of energy is responsible for the coming into being of planets. The planets in the universe are solid matter. So all of you must have heard about the Big Bang theory, which is based on the idea that there was nothing at first. The universe started with nothing and then the Big Bang came. Yoga has the same kind of theory. The Bible also, in a very hidden way, refers to this. The Bible says, first there was the Word. Chapter of John, first there was the Word. But after that sentence, they do not explain. They do not elaborate. Yoga has the same theory. First there was Om. Om is pure sattva. Pure sattva. As long as there is pure sattva, there is no condensation of energy, so there is no manifestation. Then the Bible describes the fall from paradise. The fall from paradise is a disruption of the harmony. Energy starts to fluctuate, undulate. There is a disharmony. Shiva, Shakti, Tamas, Rajas. As a result of that, gradually energy starts to condense. The fluctuations become bigger and bigger. And according to yoga philosophy, like the wave is cresting, slamming into the beach, the undulations become so big that the energy crests. And this is where, according to yoga philosophy, energy has transformed into solid matter. This is called Anu, which is a Sanskrit word for atom. So we are at this stage. As human beings, we have fallen from paradise because of disharmony, and we're frantically trying to get back to paradise, right? Who doesn't want to be in paradise? We all want to be in paradise. We just don't know how. Very often we think that money can bring us back to paradise, not realizing that it only makes it worse. Or we think that our partner can make us go to paradise, only to find out that that's also not the solution. Because everything is very complex. So the reason that human beings have a tendency to be in a tamas condition is because of this natural universal process. Everything in the universe is subject to this process and therefore inclined to be in a tamas condition. Is this bad or good? The problem is a human being who is in tamas is inert, is inactive, has a tendency towards negative thought, has a tendency towards depression, darkness. That is tamas condition. Movement leads to rajas. That is why when we feel very lethargic, usually on a Sunday, if you don't come to the yoga class, you may actually get your bike from the shed and make a bicycle ride in the park or anywhere you can go. Or you walk, or you go to the gym, fitness, do some exercise, because it feels good. When you generate Shakti energy that leads to a Rajas condition. So movement is good. Movement kills the tamas condition in which we end if we don't take matters into our own hand. But now we have a problem. For normal people, going to the gym, going to the riverside, riding a bike, or whatever exercise that feels good, that's enough, because that's all we know. We don't want to be here subconsciously, instinctively, so we naturally start moving. It feels good. The problem with this is, which is what people don't know, if only they knew, it doesn't lead to this wonderful condition where all the magic happens, because we always overshoot the goal. If you generate Shakti energy by movement, there comes a point that you get tired. So what happens when you get tired? You fall back into a tamas condition, because that condition, although it seems like it is bad, it's a necessary condition to recover from the rajas, from the fatigue of movement, of activity. So we end up in a pattern constantly fluctuating between tamas and rajas. We're either tired, leading eventually to negative thought, darkness, lethargy, so we get moving again, or the alarm clock Monday morning rudely awakes you and you start moving just by default. That movement then leads again to rajas, but there comes a point that you start yawning, that you need to take a rest, that you have to go to bed. So we are constantly, let me clean the board a little bit so that you have a better picture. Life is fluctuation between tamas and rajas. That is natural. Day and night. It's a natural cycle. At night, the flowers close, the birds go back into their nest. We also go to sleep. Tamas, which replenishes your energy, which makes you recover from your fatigue, so that in the daytime the flowers open up, the birds fly from the nest, and you start moving. Rajas. Tired, tamas. Active, rajas, etc. If we don't take control, and remember, I started the explanation of yoga at the introduction workshop that yoga is a science of life, more specifically the science of the control of life. If we don't take control, we just remain subject to this fluctuation. It's natural. The difference with animals is that if we choose to, we can take control. And if you use yoga properly, leading more and more to sattva, you reduce those fluctuations. Because when you practice correctly, you are in a condition of sattva. And when you do that long term, that condition of sattva becomes more and more the predominant condition you are in. There will always be fluctuation, but less far from sattva than it used to be in an uncontrolled condition. So it ends up more like this. Within the center, of course, the condition of sattva. The fluctuations become less violent. And with that, you are in a more predominantly sattvic condition, not only when you practice, but throughout your daily activities. And as a result of that, you start to flourish like a country that is at peace starts to flourish, starts to develop. The principle of peace or sattva is the same on an individual level, or on a societal level, national level, or global level. That is why governments find it so important that they avoid war. In a tamas condition, you feel languid and sluggish. You have no motivation to do anything, and there is a tendency to be gloomy and depressed. Tamas condition. But like I mentioned, most people are in such a condition on Sunday after a long week of working hard. Or when you start moving on Monday, generation of Shakti will start to awaken you again, and Tuesday you feel good again. Monday, we have this expression of Monday morning blues or Monday blues. There is a reason for that. This is why. Because just that one day of rest is not enough to fully recover. So on Monday, while the alarm clock, your schedule demands from you that you become active again, your body is actually screaming for more tamas. It needs a couple of days more to recover. It hasn't recovered yet, but you overrule that. The clock overrules that. And if you keep moving, the tamas will just go away. So when Monday you still feel a little bit sluggish, you compensate with a cup of coffee. Tuesday you feel good again. And by Friday you're very happy that it's weekend again, right? We all go through that pattern. In a rajas condition, you feel active and light in body and mind. You're active and creative. And you feel good overall, you feel good. This is the reason why people, for example, become a workaholic. As long as they focus, concentrate on work, they feel good. There is an exhilaration, there is a euphoria that comes with the rajas. But because they always work too much, the moment that they stop focusing, they collapse. Because of the need for recovery in tamas. And because that comes with dark mood and lethargy and all the negative things that we summed up, subconsciously we just don't like that, so we keep doing the thing that makes us feel euphoric. That is how not only work can become an addiction, but basically all addictions are based on this principle. Sattva, which is of course the most important, in sattva you feel comfortable. Your mind is quiet and contemplative. It is the time in which you solve big problems, gain insight in complex matters, but it's also where you meditate and reach higher levels of spirituality. Spirituality, by the way, is not a luxury. The world that we live in with its New Age movement presents spirituality as a luxury. It is not. Spirituality is accompanied by the manifestation of wisdom, intuition, vision, deep insight in complex matter. So not only you benefit from it, your surroundings benefit from it too. The spirituality is a development that should be spread as much as possible simply to make this world a better place. Not only for ourselves, but for everybody around us. Science in the past, before we had established forms of education, the scientists of the past were in fact yogis. They were not called yogis because every culture, not only in India, everywhere around the world, had their own people with this strong capability of contemplation. All the important inventions that were made and still are made were made by people with the ability to contemplate. That is the power of spirituality. Spirituality is not a luxury. It directly manifests in all kinds of wonderful manifestations. Manifestations of human capabilities, characteristics that otherwise remain dormant. You know, we live in a time of compulsory education. From the moment we are born, basically, until the age of 20, sometimes 25, we are subjected to very systematic compulsory education. At least until the age of, in every country it's different, but until the age of 18 approximately, in most countries, education is compulsory. So the world is full of scientists. There are many people who pursue after compulsory education, just because they can, they will pursue higher education, academic education. So the world is full of scientists. However, it is only among all those people, only few end up presenting the world with revolutionary new insights or revolutionary new technology. Only few. All the others simply repeat what they have learned from the books and their teachers without adding anything significant. Yoga explains why. It is if you combine intellect, higher education, with the ability to contemplate, you have there two ingredients that lead to genius. Intellect, contemplation, combined, lead to new revolutionary insights. Whether that translates into new philosophy or wisdom, or whether it translates into new technology. So it is the few people among all the scientists that this world is rich with, it is the few people that not only have this higher education, but also the ability, the quality of contemplation, that really make the difference. That really leads to new developments. That is the practical power of spirituality. This is not a luxury. It never has been. It has become so in the new world that we live in, but it really isn't. Because spirituality equals sattva, equals the manifestation of all those wonderful characteristics that otherwise remain dormant. It's interesting that sometimes when a course is finished, I receive thank you notes. And interestingly, I sometimes receive thank you notes not from the student, but from the partner of the student. Because the student's development, sattva, has led to a harmony in the relationship, in the household, that didn't exist before. And the partner sees that, experiences that, and benefits from that. Very interesting. It extends beyond you. Ajita, my yoga teacher in the past, used to say that if only 1 in 100 people, 1% of the world population, practices correct yoga, there wouldn't be any war anymore, there wouldn't be any conflict anymore. That is theoretical, of course, but it indicates that yoga is not only limited to yourself. If you are a professional, it will extend to the people that you work with. If you have a family, it extends to the people that you live with. Even, it extends to the people that live in your apartment block. Just because your energy is different and people unknowingly become affected. Your harmony slowly becomes their harmony. It's truly magic. Hence, the name of Magic Pond. Good. That was the first subject. Any questions? You want to have a short break? Let's have a short break, just a couple of minutes, maybe a restroom break, then we'll continue with non-violence.